Hello, and welcome back to Without a Doubt, the podcast. A podcast where we celebrate living life authentically and organically as ourselves. We're the ones who believe in creating our own paths and living our truths out loud. Join in on an honest and open conversation about self-discovery and growth. I'm your girl Mad, your host. I'm a freelance entrepreneur, a 30-something-year-old human who has never exactly done what is expected of me. I'm a sprinkle of reality, glimmer of sunshine, and as unfiltered as they come. I'm here to remind you that it's okay to do life different and that you don't have to be what is expected of you, that your happiness, it matters. I was recently out garage sailing this past weekend and I was in the area that I used to work. I stopped by a sale. The lady actually recognized me as a coach from Orange Theory, which was a whole part of who I was for a long time. She asked if I still coached there, but I was actually laid off during the pandemic and then I chose not to return. This whole conversation and exchange made me think about the past version of who I am and who I was. And it inspired me to talk about why we need to give ourselves some grace, claps for pushing through these versions of who we were, are, and how we are going to start working our way into new life and new things. Being a fitness coach was a part of who I was for over 6 years. It almost encompassed everything I preached, lived, breathed, ate, shit, everything. I taught group fitness, high intensity interval training for over 6 years. After being a success story of the workout, I shifted my way into coaching and then into the triathlon and running world and community. And ta-da! Not only did I just teach classes, I took them 3 to 5 times a week. On top of taking those, I did cycling and yoga classes and overtraining, falling victim to binging on working out. I was training for a half marathon when 1 week out I was actually dragged by a car and had a really bad road rash incident, not dragged by a car, but a friend's car. This marked a time in my life that I had to muster up everything I had just to get back to work, get back on my bike, get back to working out, and being that fit girly. I think of this time in my life as my fit girl era. It was almost everything that I was. It was a version of me that I no longer am. It was a piece of me that helped mold me into who I am now. I think this is why we need to be reminded of who we were and what our true narrative is and what is being paved for us. An article from themedium.com written by Christian Ignacio, he talks about 3 different versions of self and how they are exposed. 1, you have public self, and that's the masquerade. This is the version he says the world sees us. It's crafted meticulously with societal expectations, cultural norms, and the desire for social acceptance. The public self often wears the mask of what we believe others expect from us. This self is predominantly showcased in social gatherings or at work, or even curated on social media. It's your highlight reels. It's everything and that you want people to see. The polished exterior that you want people to clap for. Like, just picture yourself fully dressed in a costume. That is what you want the world to see. That is your public self. Then we have the private self. And that's more of an unplugged version. He calls it the authentic version of ourself. It's still filtered though. It emerges when you're with your close friends, your family, maybe even sometimes when you're alone, which means you're allowing your walls to come down, the social facade to fade, and your truest self can come undone. This self comes forward in your sanctuary of your house, during intimate conversations with friends, like when you journal. Picture yourself in this version, stripped down to just your underwear or bathing suit. Some of you is exposed, but the most personal parts are going to be covered. And then the third part of self is the naked truth, the core self, right? It's buried deep down, shielded from judgment, the world, even sometimes from who we are. It lies in the core of us. This is the rawest, most vulnerable version, stripped of its pretenses, barred of defenses, and it's the voice that whispers our deepest fears, hopes, dreams, and insecurities. And this core self often is elusive, making appearances during profound moments of introspection. It's like during your meditative states or at times when we confront extreme emotions. It could even be at the euphoria of love or the abyss of despair. This is the nakedest version of you, the stripped down version, not one piece of clothing, just you, your skin, your bones. These 3 selves make up who we are, but as we grow, we change. And these 3 selves stay while we start to encompass a new version of ourself. We live our lives evolving and changing, or we should be, constantly shedding layers that no longer serve us. We are like reptiles, essentially, snakes or bearded dragons, And they shed their old skin in order to make way for new growth. It's essentially how they grow. They get rid of the skin that's too tight so they can fit into new skin. They evolve into more mature reptiles. No. We're not reptiles. Unless you're maybe one of those lizard people, which I have mentioned before in my past episodes. Yes, I do believe in them, by the way. We do shed. We shed things. Maybe not naturally. Yes, our skin does shed. But we start shedding expectations. We grow into people we want to be. We shed layers of ourselves that we no longer want. Maybe even sometimes this happens in discomfort. And I think it's important that we have to acknowledge these past versions of ourselves into figuring out who the future versions of ourselves are. I'm not saying you have to go and reinvent yourself. Like, there should be some kind of change in who you are from the minute you're born. You can't be the same person. No one wants to be a stagnant pond. We need flow. You need growth in order to change. You need that. A lively pond has growing plants from the sunshine, from the water, from air. Fish and turtles, wildlife, all of that is abundant. This pond has movement, it has life. And if you're feeling like a stagnant pond, missing all of that, it may be time to break down that dam you have, let life do its thing, and find the light. I'm not saying to go in and edit who you are either. Unless you feel like you do need to go and edit things and work on things, maybe you are that stagnant pond. We do all have things to work on. But I'm saying who we are as a person will inevitably change. What we like, our style, where we work, what we want for our future, our goals, our hobbies, what we allow and tolerate, you start to shed the skin that no longer serves you. And that opens up fresh, new, emerging pieces of who you're meant to be. Undoubtedly, you are still that version of you, though. Maybe it's just more faint, but it's still going to be you, just a newer version. What's your perspective about who you are? And are you actually proud of yourself? Have you been able to fall down and get back up? All those versions of who we are just basically helping hands or stepping stones to help us get back on our feet when we feel down. The lessons you learn from those versions of you are the ones that mold us into the truest versions of what we want to be. You can't be who you want to be without those past versions of you. What about the past versions of yourself that you don't like? That's possible. I mean, don't we all have things that we've done, said, been, that we don't like, things you wish you could change, and you can learn from those moments to step into something else? The beauty is, like, you can move forward out of that version, out of those moments, and you can leave whatever you want in the past. Taking with you whatever you need to move forward into the newest version of you. You can do all of that. If someone tells you, hey, yeah, you've changed, it might not be a bad thing. Someone might have just been feeling left behind or left out, or they just don't know you anymore. And that's because you made the next step to level up your life. Some of us may even need to leave those people in the dust, leave them behind us with those past versions of us. Change isn't a bad thing. Yeah, sure, it can be a bad thing. You can change into something worse, sure. But changing who you are so you can create your own peaceful reality isn't a bad thing. We are all living on this planet, attempting to find the secret sauce to live the best way. It's all different. My secret sauce will taste and look different than yours, and that's okay. The end goal is essentially allowing ourselves to become the most authentic version we can. And that means also loving ourselves. I recently read an article about Samira Wiley from Orange is the New Black. That show seems like it's so old now, but it was also a recent article. She said that playing the role as Pusey, a black gay out woman, actually helped her love and yearn for black stories that are not trauma focused. I'll share this article in the show notes. She wrote at the time she was not an out black woman when she was acting for the show. She was actually outed by a castmate, which was awful, and it was accidental. And reading into this article, you can hear how much Samira really hones into her character and how much it taught her to be more of herself. It's almost like her character became a past version of herself to guide her into the world she truly wanted to live. This past character of her, being Pusey, holds so much space, and she feels gratitude for being casted. It gave her a path to be more free, pushed her into spaces to actually find love. And you can seriously watch her grow throughout the show of Orange is the New Black. She obviously is everyone's favorite character. How could you not fall in love with her? Who we have been is basically a stepping stone to where we will go. It's a landing spot, and no, this might not be easy as you morph into the 2.0 version of you. Find the grace, the gratitude along the way. Clap for yourself. And I hope you can think about that past version and give yourself some credit. thinking of things you took with you into being the newest version of you, honoring parts of you, letting go, and maybe even surrendering to this new evolution of who you're meant to be. You are without a doubt a badass. Don't you forget it. And I'll see you next week. XO, your girl Mad.